You know what's fascinating? Right now, in this very moment, there are two versions of your future being written. One version is magnificent, full of purpose, achievement, and inner peace. The other is mediocre, filled with regret and unfulfilled potential. And here's what will shock you. The difference between these two futures isn't determined by your circumstances, your background, or even your talents. It's determined by something so simple, so seemingly insignificant, that most people completely overlook it. It's determined by how you feel in the first 30 minutes after you open your eyes each morning. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. When you woke up this morning, what was the very first thing you did? Did you reach for your phone? Did you immediately start worrying about everything you have to do today? Did you hit the snooze button 3 times, fighting with yourself just to get out of bed? Or did you take a moment, just one single moment, to recognize that you were given another day, another chance, another opportunity to become who you're meant to be? I've spent decades studying the ancient teachings of the Shaolin, practicing meditation, training the body and mind to work in harmony. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that everything I've learned, all the wisdom passed down through generations, points to one fundamental truth. Your morning mood is not just about feeling good or bad. Your morning mood is the foundation upon which your entire life is built. It's the soil in which the seeds of your destiny take root. Think about it like this. Imagine you're a master architect, and every morning you're given fresh materials to build your day. Now, if you start with broken, weak, unstable materials, what kind of structure are you going to create? It doesn't matter how skilled you are, how hard you work throughout the day. If the foundation is compromised from the very beginning, everything you build on top of it will be shaky, unreliable, prone to collapse. But if you start with strong, solid, carefully selected materials, you can build something magnificent, something that stands firm against any storm. Your morning mood is that foundation. It's those materials. And most people, they're asleep, walking through the most important part of their entire day. I remember training with a young monk many years ago, a brilliant young man, incredibly talented, strong, disciplined in his physical practice. But every morning, he would wake up already defeated. You could see it in his eyes, in the way he carried his body. He would drag himself to morning meditation like he was carrying the weight of the entire world on his shoulders. And day after day, despite all his talents, despite all his efforts, he couldn't make progress. He couldn't break through to the next level of his training. One morning, I asked him, "Tell me, what is the first thought that enters your mind when you wake up?" He looked at me, surprised by the question, and after a moment he said, "I think about everything I failed to do yesterday. I think about how far I still have to go. I think about how I'm not good enough yet." And there it was. The root of all his struggles wasn't his technique, wasn't his dedication. It was the poison he was feeding his mind the moment he opened his eyes. We worked together for months, not on his physical training, but on transforming those first precious moments of his day. And you know what happened? Everything changed. His progress accelerated beyond anything he'd experienced before. His energy shifted. His entire presence transformed. And it all started with understanding this one principle. You cannot control everything that happens to you, but you can absolutely control the state of mind you cultivate when you first wake up. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but Shi Heng Yi, you don't understand my life. I have real problems. I have bills to pay, responsibilities, stress, difficult relationships, health issues. I can't just wake up and pretend everything is perfect. And you're absolutely right. I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm not asking you to fake positivity or ignore your challenges. What I'm asking you to do is far more powerful than that. I'm asking you to understand that your morning mood doesn't just react to your life, it creates your life. Every single day you have a choice. You can wake up as a victim of your circumstances, or you can wake up as the creator of your experience. And that choice, that single decision made in those first few moments after you open your eyes, will determine whether you spend your day reacting to life or creating life. Let me share something with you that changed my entire understanding of human potential. There was a study done where researchers looked at highly successful people across different fields, entrepreneurs, athletes, artists, spiritual leaders, and they found something remarkable. It wasn't their intelligence that set them apart. It wasn't their education or their resources. What distinguished them was their morning routine, specifically the emotional and mental state they cultivated before engaging with the external world. These people understood something profound. They understood that the world is incredibly skilled at pulling you in 1,000 different directions, demanding your attention, triggering your emotions, creating chaos and distraction. And if you wake up and immediately open yourself to all of that without first establishing your inner foundation, you become like a leaf in the wind, blown wherever the strongest force pushes you. But if you take control of your morning, if you consciously choose your starting emotional state, you become like a mountain. The winds still blow, the storms still come, but you remain unshaken, rooted, purposeful. There's an old Zen saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. And nowhere is this more true than in your morning. If you wake up scattered, you'll live scattered. If you wake up anxious, you'll live anxious. If you wake up defeated, you'll live defeated. But if you wake up centered, intentional, grateful, you'll carry that energy into every interaction, every decision, every challenge throughout your day. I want you to imagine two people. They both have the same job, the same responsibilities, even similar life circumstances. Person A wakes up, immediately grabs their phone, starts scrolling through social media, reading news that triggers anxiety, comparing themselves to others, flooding their nervous system with stress hormones before they even get out of bed. They rush through their morning, already running late, skip breakfast or eat something unhealthy while multitasking, arrive at work already exhausted. Throughout the day, they're reactive, scattered, easily frustrated. By evening, they're drained, numb, seeking distraction rather than fulfillment. Person B wakes up at the same time, but they do something different. Before touching their phone, before engaging with the external world, they take 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, to breathe deeply, to feel gratitude for another day, to set an intention for how they want to show up. They move their body, even if just for 10 minutes. They eat mindfully, hydrating their body, nourishing themselves. They arrive at the same job, face the same challenges as person A, but they're coming from a completely different place internally. They're responsive rather than reactive. They're present rather than scattered. They have energy at the end of the day for the things and people they care about. Now, here's the question, are these two people living the same life? Technically, yes, same circumstances. But experientially, they're living in completely different realities. And it all started with their morning mood, with those first critical choices about where to direct their attention and energy. The ancient masters understood this deeply. That's why every spiritual tradition, every wisdom teaching, every martial art discipline places such tremendous emphasis on the morning practice. It's not just ritual. It's not just tradition. It's strategic mastery over your own consciousness. Because they knew that whoever controls the morning controls the day, and whoever controls the day controls the life. But here's where it gets really interesting. Modern neuroscience is now confirming what these ancient teachers knew thousands of years ago. When you first wake up, your brain is in a unique state. You're transitioning from the theta brainwave state of sleep to the beta brainwave state of waking consciousness. And in those first few minutes, your subconscious mind is incredibly receptive, incredibly programmable. Whatever you feed it in those moments, whatever emotions you generate, whatever thoughts you think, they sink in deeply. They become the operating system for your entire day. This is why what you do in the morning isn't just about feeling good temporarily. It's literally programming your nervous system, your emotional baseline, your cognitive patterns for the next 16 to 18 hours. You're essentially writing the code that your brain and body will run on all day long. Think about a computer. If you install corrupted software the moment you turn it on, everything that a computer does throughout the day will be affected by that corrupted code. You can try to fix individual problems as they arise, but you're fighting an uphill battle because the fundamental operating system is compromised. But if you install clean, efficient, powerful software from the very beginning, that computer will run smoothly, handle challenges effectively, perform at its peak capacity. Your mind works the same way. Your morning mood is the software installation, and most people are installing fear, anxiety, overwhelm, and resentment as their daily operating system, then wondering why nothing in their life seems to work smoothly. I've trained warriors, monks who could endure extraordinary physical challenges, who possessed incredible mental discipline. And you know what was always the difference between those who achieved mastery and those who plateaued? It wasn't their technique during training. It was their state of mind before training began. The masters understood that the battle isn't won in the arena. The battle is won in the quiet moments before you enter the arena. In the preparation of your mind and spirit, your life is no different. The challenges you'll face today, the work you need to do, the relationships you need to navigate, the problems you need to solve, none of these will be conquered primarily through external action. They'll be conquered through the internal state you bring to them. And that state is determined by your morning. Let me tell you about a woman I met several years ago at one of my talks. She approached me afterwards, tears in her eyes, and said, "I feel like I'm drowning. Every day I wake up already exhausted. I have 3 children, a demanding job, financial stress, and I just don't know how I'm going to make it through." She was at her breaking point, convinced that her circumstances were simply too overwhelming to overcome. I asked her to try something for just 1 week, just 7 days. I asked her to wake up 30 minutes earlier than usual, and in those 30 minutes, before looking at her phone, before thinking about her problems, before engaging with her family's needs, I asked her to do 3 things: breathe consciously for 5 minutes, move her body in any way that felt good for 10 minutes, and spend 5 minutes writing down 3 things she was grateful for, no matter how small. She looked at me like I was crazy. "I don't have an extra 30 minutes, she said. "I'm barely surviving as it is." But something in her decided to trust the process, to try. 3 months later, she sent me a message. She said, "My life circumstances haven't changed much. I still have the same responsibilities, the same stresses, the same challenges. But everything feels different. I feel different. I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm actually starting to thrive." And it all started with those 30 minutes, with choosing to take control of how I begin my day. This is the power of morning mood mastery. It doesn't require your life to be perfect. It doesn't require your problems to disappear. It requires you to understand that your inner state is not determined by your outer circumstances. Your inner state determines how you experience and respond to those circumstances. Now, let's talk about what actually happens physiologically when you take control of your morning mood. When you wake up stressed, rushed, immediately engaging with problems and demands, your body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. Your nervous system shifts into sympathetic overdrive, what we call fight or flight mode. Your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes shallow, your digestion shuts down, your immune system is suppressed, and your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking, creativity, and emotional regulation, goes offline. You're now operating from your reptilian brain, the most primitive part of your nervous system. And from this state, everything looks like a threat. Everything feels urgent. everything seems overwhelming. You're not thinking clearly. You're just reacting, surviving, defending, and you're making decisions, having conversations, solving problems from this compromised state. But when you intentionally cultivate a positive, centered morning mood, something completely different happens. Your nervous system shifts into parasympathetic mode, the rest and digest state. Your body releases serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, the chemicals that make you feel calm, motivated, connected. Your breathing deepens naturally. Your heart rate variability increases, which is a key marker of resilience and adaptability. Your prefrontal cortex comes fully online, giving you access to your highest cognitive abilities. From this state, you see opportunities instead of just threats. You respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. You connect with others more authentically. You solve problems more creatively. You have access to your full intelligence, your full potential, your full humanity. Same person, same day, same challenges, but completely different biological and neurological state. And that state was determined in the first 30 minutes after waking up. This is why the ancient masters would say that the morning practice isn't separate from your life. It is your life. Everything that happens afterwards flows from those foundational moments. Your relationships, your work, your health, your sense of purpose, all of it is directly influenced by the emotional and energetic state you establish each morning. But here's what most people miss. They think managing their morning mood is about being positive or happy all the time. That's not what this is about. True morning mood mastery isn't about forcing yourself to feel a certain way. It's about creating the conditions for your natural wisdom, strength, and clarity to emerge. It's about removing the obstacles that prevent you from accessing your best self. Think of it like this. You have a well inside you, a deep well of peace, creativity, courage, and wisdom. It's always there. It never goes away. But throughout your life, this well gets covered with debris, with worry, with past hurts, with limiting beliefs, with the clutter of modern life. And when you wake up and immediately pile more debris on top by scrolling through your phone, by engaging with stress, by starting your day in reaction mode, you bury that well even deeper. Your morning practice, whatever form it takes, is about clearing away that debris. It's about giving yourself access to the well that's already within you. You're not creating something new. You're removing what's blocking what's already there. I practice this every single day. Even after decades of training, even with all the wisdom I've accumulated, I still need to consciously manage my morning state. Because I understand that wisdom isn't something you achieve once and then you're done. Wisdom is something you practice moment by moment, day by day, and it starts fresh every morning. When I wake up, before anything else, I lie still for a moment and I notice. I notice my breath. I notice my body. I notice my thoughts. I don't judge them. I don't try to change them immediately. I just observe. This simple act of conscious observation immediately begins to shift my state. I'm no longer lost in thought. I'm witnessing thought. I'm no longer identified with my emotions. I'm aware of my emotions. And in that space of awareness, choice emerges. From that place of awareness, I can ask myself, how do I want to meet this day? What energy do I want to bring into the world? What version of myself do I want to be today? And then I align my morning actions with that intention. Some mornings, my practice is vigorous physical training. Other mornings, it's gentle movement and deep meditation. Sometimes it's sitting in silence with a cup of tea, watching the sunrise. The specific activities matter less than the underlying intention. To consciously choose my starting state rather than letting it be chosen for me by circumstances, by habits, by the momentum of yesterday's energy. And this is crucial to understand. Your morning mood isn't just about the morning. It's setting the trajectory for everything that follows. Momentum is real. Energy is contagious, including the energy you bring to yourself. If you start the day centered and intentional, you're more likely to make choices throughout the day that reinforce that state. If you start the day scattered and reactive, you're more likely to make choices that keep you in that pattern. It's like steering a ship. A tiny adjustment at the beginning of the journey can mean the difference between ending up at your intended destination or being hundreds of miles off course. Your morning mood is that tiny adjustment with massive implications. I've seen people transform their entire lives simply by transforming their morning, not because they got a new job or a new relationship or more money, because they changed their internal starting point, and from that new starting point, everything else began to shift. Opportunities they couldn't see before became visible. Solutions that seemed impossible became obvious. Relationships that were strained began to heal. Not because the external world changed, but because they changed how they were showing up in that world. There's a story from the Shaolin tradition about a young student who came to the temple seeking to become a great warrior. The master accepted him and began his training. But instead of teaching him fighting techniques, the master had him wake before dawn every day and sit in meditation, watching the sunrise. Day after day, month after month, the student sat and watched the sunrise while other students trained in combat. Finally, frustrated, the student confronted his master. "You promised to teach me to become a great warrior, but all you have me do is watch the sun rise. When will my real training begin?" The master smiled and said, "Your training has already been happening. A great warrior doesn't win battles through technique alone. A great warrior wins through presence, through clarity, through the ability to meet each moment fully conscious and awake. If you cannot master the simple act of greeting each day with full awareness, how will you master the chaos of combat? Your morning practice is not separate from your warrior training. It is the foundation of everything else." The student understood, and from that day forward, he approached his morning practice not as something he had to do before his real work, but as the most essential work of all. This is what I'm inviting you to understand. Your morning mood practice isn't something extra you need to add to your already busy life. It's the thing that makes everything else in your life more effective, more meaningful, more possible. It's the ultimate leverage point. Think about all the time you spend throughout the day trying to fix problems, manage stress, boost your motivation, repair your energy. What if, instead of spending hours trying to patch up a foundation that was cracked from the beginning, you simply started with a solid foundation? What if those 30 minutes in the morning saved you hours of struggle throughout the day? This is actually one of the biggest misconceptions about morning routines. People say, "I don't have time for a morning routine." But the truth is, you don't have time now to have a morning routine, because without it, you'll spend your entire day operating at a fraction of your potential, which means everything takes longer, requires more effort, produces less results, and leaves you more exhausted. A proper morning practice doesn't steal time from your day. It multiplies the effectiveness of every hour that follows. It's the ultimate efficiency hack, though I dislike that term, because this isn't really about hacking or shortcuts. It's about honoring the natural rhythms of human consciousness and working with them rather than against them. Your brain and body are designed to be calibrated each morning. That's not a bug in the system, it's a feature. It's an opportunity built into your biology for a fresh start, a reset, a chance to choose again. But most people ignore this opportunity. They carry yesterday's stress into today. They wake up already behind, already defeated, already overwhelmed. And then they wonder why life feels so hard, why they can't seem to make progress, why they feel stuck in patterns they want to break but can't. It's because they're trying to change their life while refusing to change the one thing that creates their life, their daily starting point. I want you to consider something. How much of your life dissatisfaction, your stress, your sense of being overwhelmed comes not from what's actually happening, but from the state you're in when those things happen? How different would the exact same day feel if you approached it from a place of inner peace versus a place of inner chaos. The circumstances might be identical, but the experience would be completely different. And that experience, that's your life. Not the circumstances, but your experience of the circumstances. And your experience is primarily determined by your state. And your state is primarily determined by your morning. This is why I say your morning mood controls your destiny. Because your destiny isn't some abstract future outcome. Your destiny is being written right now in how you meet this moment, and this moment, and this moment. And the quality of how you meet each moment is determined by the foundation you built this morning. Every great achievement, every meaningful relationship, every moment of joy, every breakthrough, it all happens in the present moment. The future is just a series of present moments you haven't experienced yet. And if you want those future moments to be different, you need to change how you're creating your present moments. And that starts with your morning. Let me be very practical with you now, because I don't want this to be just inspiring words that you forget tomorrow. I want this to actually change your life. So let's talk about what morning mood mastery actually looks like in practice. First, understand that this isn't about perfection. It's not about having some elaborate 2-hour morning routine that only works if your life is completely controlled and nothing unexpected happens. That's not realistic for most people. And honestly, it's not necessary. What matters is intention, consistency, and presence. Even 5 conscious minutes is infinitely more powerful than 0 conscious minutes. Even 1 deep breath taken with full awareness is more valuable than an hour of unconscious rushing. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. But do something. Make the choice to take control of those first precious moments. Second, understand that your morning practice needs to address 3 key dimensions: your body, your mind, and your spirit. You need to wake up your body through movement. You need to clear and focus your mind through breath or meditation or journaling. And you need to connect with something larger than yourself through gratitude or intention, setting a prayer, or whatever speaks to your spirit. When all 3 dimensions are addressed, even briefly, you create a stable 3-legged stool to sit on throughout the day. If 1 leg is missing, you're off balance. Your morning doesn't have to be complicated, but it does need to be complete. Third, protect your morning from digital invasion. This is non-negotiable if you want to truly master your morning mood. Your phone is a portal to everyone else's agenda, everyone else's emotions, everyone else's problems and priorities. The moment you look at your phone, you're no longer in control of your morning. You've handed control to whoever sent you messages, to whatever algorithm is feeding you content, to the collective anxiety of the digital world. I cannot stress this enough. Do not touch your phone for at least the first 30 minutes after waking, not even to check the time. Get an actual alarm clock. This one change alone will transform your mornings more than anything else. Fourth, create a trigger. Human beings are creatures of habit, and habits are activated by triggers. Create a specific trigger that signals to your brain and body that it's time to enter your morning practice. Maybe it's the moment your feet touch the floor. Maybe it's lighting a candle. Maybe it's putting on specific clothes. Maybe it's going to a specific spot in your home. The trigger doesn't matter. What matters is that you consistently link it to your practice so that over time, the trigger automatically puts you in the right state. Fifth, and this is crucial, approach your morning practice with full commitment but 0 self-judgment. Some mornings will feel effortless and blissful. Other mornings will feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill. Both are fine. Both are part of the practice. What matters is that you show up. The benefits don't come from having perfect mornings. They come from the consistent choice to honor yourself with intentional mornings. Let me share something personal with you. There are mornings when I wake up and my mind is already racing with concerns, when my body feels tired, when the last thing I want to do is practice. And in those moments, I have a choice. I can listen to that resistance and start my day from that defeated place. Or I can recognize that resistance for what it is, just a pattern, just old conditioning, just yesterday's energy trying to continue into today. And I make the choice to practice anyway, not because I'm disciplined, though discipline helps, but because I've experienced enough days starting both ways to know beyond any doubt which path leads where. I've lived the consequences of surrendering my morning to unconsciousness, and I've lived the rewards of claiming my morning through presence. And given that experience, the choice becomes obvious. This is what I want you to develop, not willpower or discipline in the forceful sense, but clear seeing. When you see clearly what each path leads to, when you viscerally understand that your morning mood truly does control your destiny, the choice becomes natural. You're not forcing yourself to have a morning practice. You're choosing it because you love yourself enough to give yourself the best possible start to each day. And here's something beautiful that happens over time. At first, your morning practice might feel like something you have to do, an obligation, a discipline. But gradually, it becomes something you get to do, a gift you give yourself, the most sacred part of your day. It becomes non-negotiable, not because someone else is forcing you, but because you've experienced its power and you're no longer willing to abandon yourself by skipping it. The morning becomes your sanctuary, your reset button, your opportunity to remember who you really are beneath all the roles and responsibilities and stress. It becomes the foundation of your sanity, your peace, your power. Now, I want to address something important. Some of you might be thinking, this all sounds great, but what about when life is genuinely hard? What about when I'm going through grief or illness or financial crisis or relationship breakdown? Can a morning routine really matter then? And my answer is especially then. Especially when life is hard is when you most need to guard your inner state. Because when circumstances are challenging, that's when being in the right state makes the difference between breaking down and breaking through. I'm not suggesting that a morning routine solves your problems. I'm saying it gives you the inner resources to face your problems from your strongest self rather than your weakest self. And that makes all the difference. During the most difficult periods of my own life, my morning practice wasn't about feeling good. It was about finding ground to stand on. It was about creating one small space of control and peace in the midst of chaos. It was about refusing to let circumstances steal my entire day before it even began. Some mornings, my practice was just lying still and breathing, reminding myself that I was alive, that this too would pass, that I had faced hard things before and survived. That was enough. That was everything. Your morning practice is flexible. It adapts to your circumstances. But the core principle remains: before you give your energy to the world, you tend to yourself. Before you fight external battles, you establish internal peace. Before you react to life, you choose how you want to respond. This is true power. Not the power to control everything around you, but the power to control how you meet everything around you. Not the power to prevent storms, but the power to remain steady while storms rage. Not the power to avoid pain, but the power to transform pain into wisdom and strength. Let me tell you what happens when you commit to this practice for an extended period. The first week, you might not notice much. You might even wonder if it's working. Your mind will give you every excuse to quit. You're too busy. It's not making a difference. You can skip today and start again tomorrow. Don't listen to that voice. That voice is your old pattern defending itself. Patterns don't die easily. They fight back. They tell you that change isn't necessary, that you were fine before, that this is all just unnecessary effort. Push through that first week, because around the second and third week, something begins to shift. You start noticing that you're a bit calmer during stressful situations. You catch yourself responding thoughtfully instead of reacting automatically. You have slightly more energy in the afternoon. Small things, but significant. By the end of the first month, the changes become undeniable. Your sleep improves. Your relationships improve because you're showing up more present and less reactive. Your work improves because you have better focus and creativity. You feel more like yourself, more authentic, more aligned with who you want to be. After 3 months, it's not even a question anymore. Your morning practice has become as essential as breathing. You can feel the difference on the rare days when you skip it. Your whole day just feels off, and you know why. You've experienced both versions enough times to see the pattern clearly. After 6 months to a year, you look back and hardly recognize the person you were before. Not because your life circumstances have completely transformed, though often they have in surprising ways, but because you have transformed. Your inner world has become so much more stable, so much more peaceful, so much more powerful. And from that transformed inner world, everything else in your life begins to reorganize itself. This isn't magic. This isn't wishful thinking. This is how consciousness works. This is how human beings are designed to function. When you align with your natural design, when you work with your biology and psychology rather than against them, extraordinary things become possible. Your morning mood controls your destiny because your morning mood controls everything else. It controls your energy level, which determines how much you can accomplish. It controls your emotional state, which determines the quality of your relationships. It controls your mental clarity, which determines the quality of your decisions. It controls your stress response, which determines your health over time. It controls your sense of purpose and meaning, which determines your motivation and persistence. Everything flows from that starting point. Everything. And the beautiful thing, the truly liberating thing, is that this starting point is completely within your control. You might not be able to control whether you have to go to a difficult job today. You might not be able to control whether you're dealing with health challenges or financial stress or relationship problems. But you can absolutely control those first 30 minutes. You can absolutely control whether you begin your day as a victim or as a creator. That's your power. That's your freedom. That's your opportunity every single morning for the rest of your life. Imagine waking up tomorrow and making a different choice. Imagine what your life could look like 1 year from now if every single day started from a place of intention, presence, and inner alignment. Imagine the compounding effect of 365 days of powerful mornings. Where would you be? Who would you be? What would be possible that seems impossible now? That's not fantasy. That's available to you. Starting tomorrow morning. Starting with one choice, the choice to honor yourself with a conscious beginning to your day. Your destiny isn't written in the stars. It's written in the small, seemingly insignificant choices you make every single day. And the most important of those choices, the one that influences all the others, happens in the first 30 minutes after you open your eyes. You are not powerless. You are not stuck. You are not destined to repeat yesterday forever. You have been given an incredible gift, the gift of a new beginning every 24 hours. Use it. Honor it. Let your morning mood become the foundation of your greatest life. The sun will rise tomorrow, whether you're awake to greet it with consciousness or not. But only you can decide whether you'll meet that sunrise as a sleeping person being dragged into another day, or as an awakened person consciously creating another opportunity. Your morning mood controls your destiny. Make that control conscious. Make it intentional. Make it a practice. And watch everything change. You see, there's something else I need to tell you, something that goes even deeper than what we've already explored. The morning isn't just a time of day. The morning is a metaphor for every new beginning in your life. Every moment you wake up to a new awareness, every time you choose to start fresh after a setback, every instance where you could continue in your old patterns, but instead choose something different, that's a morning. That's a sunrise happening inside your consciousness. And just like you can sleep through the actual sunrise, you can sleep through these internal sunrises. You can miss 1,000 opportunities for transformation because you're not awake enough to recognize them when they appear. I've watched people go through tremendous pain, face devastating losses, encounter situations that could have been catalysts for profound growth, and yet they learn nothing. They suffer, yes, but they don't transform. Why? Because they were asleep. They went through the experiences, but they didn't wake up to what the experience was trying to teach them. They were so consumed by their reaction to what was happening that they missed the invitation hidden within it. Then I've seen others face similar challenges, and something completely different occurs. They wake up. The pain cracks them open, and instead of closing down in bitterness or victimhood, they become more conscious, more compassionate, more alive. The same challenge that breaks one person open breaks another person down. What's the difference? The difference is whether they're awake or asleep to the moment. This is why the morning practice is so critical. You're training yourself in the art of waking up. You're building the muscle of consciousness. Every morning that you choose presence over sleep, intention over habit, awareness over automation, you're getting stronger at recognizing and seizing those transformative moments when they appear throughout your day. Let me tell you about a businessman I met several years ago. Successful by all external measures, wealthy, respected in his industry, seemingly had everything figured out. But inside he was dying. He felt hollow, disconnected, like he was playing a role in someone else's life. He came to one of my retreats as a last resort, desperate for something he couldn't even name. On the third morning of the retreat, we were doing our sunrise meditation. I watched him sitting there, and suddenly his entire body began to shake. Tears started streaming down his face. After the session, he came to me and said, "I just realized I haven't actually been awake for 20 years. I've been going through the motions, checking boxes, achieving goals that weren't even really mine. I've been asleep while appearing to be successful. And this morning, for the first time in 2 decades, I actually felt what it's like to be alive." That moment changed the trajectory of his entire life. Not because anything external changed in that instant, but because he woke up. He became conscious of his unconsciousness. And once you see that you've been asleep, you can't unsee it. Once you taste what it feels like to be truly awake, you can't settle for sleepwalking anymore. But here's what's tricky. The mind is incredibly skilled at creating the illusion of being awake while actually being asleep. You can be very busy, very productive, very distracted, and believe that you're fully engaged with life. But business isn't awareness. Productivity isn't presence. Distraction isn't engagement. True awakeness has a quality to it. It's quiet but alert. It's relaxed but focused. It's open but discerning. When you're truly awake, there's a sense of spaciousness even in the midst of activity. There's a part of you that remains still even when everything around you is moving. There's an inner witness that observes without getting lost in what's being observed. This is what your morning practice cultivates. Not the ability to control your thoughts or eliminate your emotions or transcend your humanity, but the ability to remain conscious, to stay present with what is, to observe your experience without being completely consumed by it. And this capacity, this ability to remain awake, this is what allows you to actually learn from your life, because you can't learn from experiences you're not fully present for. You can't grow from challenges you're merely reacting to. You can't extract wisdom from pain if you're trying to escape it or numb it or deny it. The awakened mind meets everything that arises with curiosity rather than judgment, with openness rather than resistance, with consciousness rather than unconsciousness. And this meeting, this quality of presence, this is what transforms ordinary experiences into extraordinary lessons. I remember a period in my training when I was working on a particular martial arts technique. For months, I practiced this technique daily. I performed it hundreds, maybe thousands of times. But I wasn't improving. I was stuck, frustrated, beginning to doubt whether I could ever master it. One morning, my master watched me practicing and then stopped me. He said, "How many times have you done this technique?" I told him, "Thousands of times." He nodded and said, "No, you've done it once, thousands of times. You're repeating the same unconscious pattern over and over. Repetition without awareness doesn't create mastery. It creates deeper grooves of unconsciousness. If you want to improve, you must wake up to what you're actually doing. You must be present for each repetition as if it's the first time, the only time." That teaching changed everything for me, and not just in martial arts. I realized I had been living much of my life the same way, repeating patterns, going through motions, but not truly present, not truly learning, not truly growing, just creating deeper grooves of unconsciousness. Your morning is your opportunity to break that cycle. It's your daily reminder that you don't have to repeat yesterday. You don't have to continue unconscious patterns. You can wake up. You can be present. You can choose differently. But let me be clear about something. Waking up isn't comfortable. Consciousness isn't always pleasant. When you start to become truly aware, you see things you've been avoiding. You feel things you've been numbing. You recognize patterns you've been denying. This is why so many people choose to stay asleep. Not because they lack the ability to wake up, but because waking up requires facing what you've been running from. Your morning practice will bring things to the surface. Old emotions, buried pain, unacknowledged fear, parts of yourself you've rejected. This isn't a problem. This is the practice working, because you can't heal what you can't feel. You can't transform what you won't acknowledge. You can't integrate what you keep pushing away. The morning is your safe space to feel these things, to be with them, to let them move through you without acting them out in your relationships or your work. It's your opportunity to process what needs to be processed, to release what needs to be released, to integrate what needs to be integrated. I've had mornings where I sit in meditation and grief from years ago suddenly surfaces. I've had mornings where I'm doing my physical practice and anger I didn't even know I was carrying erupts through my body. I've had mornings where I'm journaling and insights about my own blind spots emerge that are difficult to accept. These aren't failed practices. These are the most important practices. Because I'm not bypassing my humanity with spirituality. I'm not using my morning routine to create a false sense of peace that avoids real feelings. I'm using my morning practice to become more fully human, more fully present to all of who I am, light and shadow, strength and vulnerability, wisdom and confusion. This is the path to wholeness, not perfection, wholeness. And wholeness requires consciousness. It requires waking up to all the parts of yourself, not just the parts you're proud of. Your morning mood isn't about manufacturing artificial positivity. It's about creating the conditions for authentic presence. And authentic presence includes everything, the joy and the sorrow, the clarity and the confusion, the confidence and the doubt. But when you're present with all of it, you're no longer controlled by any of it. You're aware of your emotions without being dominated by them. You're cognizant of your thoughts without being imprisoned by them. You're in touch with your body without being limited by its temporary states. This is freedom. Not freedom from your humanity, but freedom within your humanity. Not transcendence that escapes life, but embodiment that fully engages with life. Not detachment that creates distance, but presence that creates depth. And this freedom, this is what changes your destiny. Because when you're free internally, you make completely different choices externally. When you're not controlled by unconscious patterns, you can act from wisdom rather than habit. When you're not driven by unexamined fears, you can move toward your authentic purpose rather than away from imagined threats. Think about the major decisions in your life, the career path you chose or didn't choose, the relationships you entered or avoided, the risks you took or didn't take, the person you became or didn't become. How many of those decisions were made from a place of genuine awareness and freedom? And how many were made from unconscious patterns, unexamined fears, inherited beliefs, or social conditioning? Most people spend their entire lives making decisions from an unconscious state, and then they wonder why their life doesn't feel truly theirs. They're living someone else's dreams, following someone else's script, pursuing goals that were implanted rather than chosen. Your morning practice is your rebellion against this unconsciousness. It's your daily declaration that you will not be lived by forces you're unaware of. It's your commitment to consciousness, to choice, to genuine authorship of your own life. But here's where it gets really interesting and really challenging. The forces that want to keep you unconscious are incredibly powerful. Your own conditioning resists consciousness because consciousness threatens its survival. Society doesn't particularly want you to be conscious because conscious people are harder to manipulate and control. Your own fear doesn't want you to be conscious because consciousness requires facing what fear wants you to avoid. So you'll be tested. Every single day, you'll be tested. You'll be tempted to skip your morning practice. You'll be given seemingly good reasons to abandon your commitment to consciousness. You'll be pulled by 1,000 different demands and distractions. You'll be told by yourself and by others that this whole consciousness thing is self-indulgent, unnecessary, impractical. This is the moment of truth. This is where you discover whether your commitment to waking up is stronger than your habit of sleeping. This is where you find out whether you truly want freedom or whether you just like the idea of freedom. I can't make this choice for you. Your loved ones can't make this choice for you. No teacher, no teaching, no technique can force you to choose consciousness. This is something only you can do, and you have to do it fresh every single morning. Some mornings it will feel easy. The momentum of your practice will carry you. You'll wake up naturally energized and motivated. Those aren't the important mornings. The important mornings are when everything in you wants to stay asleep, wants to hit snooze, wants to skip the practice and go straight into reaction mode. Those are the mornings that define you. Those are the mornings where you either break through to a new level or slip back into old patterns. I'll tell you honestly, after decades of practice, I still have those mornings. I still wake up sometimes not wanting to practice. The difference is that I've learned to recognize that resistance as a sign that practice is especially important that day. When I most want to avoid consciousness, that's when I most need to choose consciousness. Because that resistance isn't random. It's showing up because there's something trying to remain unconscious. There's a pattern that doesn't want to be seen. There's a feeling that doesn't want to be felt. There's a truth that doesn't want to be acknowledged. And if I honor that resistance, if I let it win, I'm choosing to remain unconscious to whatever that thing is. But if I practice anyway, if I sit down and breathe and become present despite the resistance, something shifts. The thing that was trying to stay hidden begins to reveal itself. The pattern that was running unconsciously begins to become conscious. The feeling that was being suppressed begins to be felt and processed. The truth that was being avoided begins to be acknowledged and integrated. This is the real work of transformation, not the easy practices when everything feels good. But the challenging practices when everything in you wants to remain unconscious. That's where the breakthrough happens. That's where the pattern gets interrupted. That's where you actually change rather than just thinking about changing. And over time, as you consistently choose consciousness over unconsciousness, something remarkable happens. The resistance gets weaker. The pull toward old patterns loses its power. The voice that tells you to skip practice becomes quieter. Not because you've eliminated your conditioning, but because you've strengthened your consciousness to the point where it can witness conditioning without being controlled by it. This is mastery, not the absence of challenges, but the presence of consciousness in the midst of challenges. Not a life without triggers, but a mind that can observe triggers without automatically reacting to them. Not a personality without flaws, but an awareness that sees those flaws clearly and can choose how to work with them. Your morning practice is building this capacity in you. Day by day, breath by breath, choice by choice, you're becoming more awake, more conscious, more free. And that freedom is changing your destiny because you're no longer unconsciously creating the same patterns and problems over and over. You're consciously choosing new possibilities, new responses, new ways of being. Let me share something with you that might challenge you. Most people think they want to be happy. They think that's the goal, to feel good, to be comfortable, to have pleasant experiences. And there's nothing wrong with happiness. But happiness isn't the same as consciousness. And if you have to choose between being happy and being conscious, consciousness is far more valuable. Because consciousness allows you to learn and grow from everything, including difficult experiences. Consciousness gives you the capacity to find meaning and purpose even in suffering. Consciousness enables you to live authentically rather than just comfortably. Consciousness creates the conditions for genuine happiness rather than just temporary pleasure. If you pursue happiness directly, if that's your primary goal, you'll end up avoiding everything that threatens your comfort. You'll run from pain, suppress difficult emotions, avoid challenging growth, and ultimately create a smaller and smaller life. Because life is full of things that aren't comfortable, and if you're constantly trying to escape discomfort, you're constantly running away from life itself. But if you pursue consciousness, if that's your primary goal, you can meet everything that arises. You can be present for the joy and the sorrow, the success and the failure, the pleasure and the pain. You can extract wisdom from every experience. You can grow through every challenge. You can live fully rather than just safely. And paradoxically, this path of consciousness leads to a deeper, more stable kind of happiness than the path of pursuing happiness directly. Not the brittle happiness that depends on external circumstances, but the profound happiness that comes from being fully alive, fully present, fully engaged with existence. Your morning practice isn't ultimately about feeling good in the morning. It's about developing the consciousness that allows you to live fully, regardless of how any particular moment feels. It's about building the inner strength to remain present when presence is difficult. It's about cultivating the awareness that sees through illusions and recognizes truth. This is what changes your destiny. Not positive thinking, not visualization, not affirmations, but actual consciousness, actual presence, actual awakeness to what is. Because when you're truly conscious, you see opportunities that unconscious people miss. You make connections that unconscious people can't perceive. You respond with wisdom that unconscious people don't have access to. Destiny isn't predetermined. It's created moment by moment through the quality of consciousness you bring to each moment. And the quality of consciousness you bring to each moment is heavily influenced by how you began that day, by whether you woke up consciously or unconsciously, by whether you took responsibility for your inner state or abdicated that responsibility to circumstances and habits. I want you to really let this sink in. Your life, your actual lived experience, your relationships, your work, your health, your sense of meaning and purpose, all of it is downstream from your morning consciousness. Everything flows from that source. If the source is polluted with unconsciousness, with reactivity, with old patterns and conditioning, then everything downstream will be affected. But if the source is clear, if you begin each day with consciousness, with presence, with intention, then everything downstream benefits from that clarity. This is why I've dedicated my life to this practice and to sharing this teaching, not because morning routines are trendy or because self-improvement is popular, but because I've seen in my own life and in the lives of countless others that this is where transformation actually happens. This is where freedom is actually found. This is where destiny is actually created. You have more power than you realize. You've been conditioned to believe that your life is largely determined by factors outside your control, by your past, by your circumstances, by other people's choices, by luck or fate or genetics. And yes, there are aspects of life that you cannot control, but there's one thing you can always control: your response, your consciousness, your presence, your choice about how you meet this moment. And that one thing, that ability to choose your response, that's everything. That's where all your power resides. That's the lever you can pull that moves everything else. That's the foundation upon which you can build any life you desire. But you have to claim that power. You have to exercise it. You have to practice it daily until it becomes your natural way of being. And that practice begins in the morning. In those first precious moments when you transition from sleep to wakefulness, when you have the opportunity to consciously choose who you're going to be today. Don't waste that opportunity. Don't surrender those moments to unconsciousness. Don't let another day begin without your full participation in its beginning, because every day that starts unconsciously is a day you're living by default rather than by design. It's a day you're being lived rather than living. It's a day you're reacting rather than creating. And at the end of your life, when you look back, you'll realize that your life was made up of all those days, all those mornings, all those choices about whether to wake up or stay asleep. And the quality of your life, the depth of your relationships, the meaningfulness of your work, the richness of your experience will have been determined by the sum total of those morning choices. So choose consciousness, choose presence, choose to wake up, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Choose to meet each new day as the gift that it is, as the opportunity that it is, as the invitation to create your life that it presents every single morning. Your morning mood controls your destiny because your morning mood determines whether you're asleep or awake to the possibilities of each day. And only an awakened person can truly create their destiny. An unconscious person can only repeat their conditioning. Which will you be? The choice is yours. And that choice begins tomorrow morning, the moment you open your eyes. Will you reach for your phone, or will you reach for consciousness? Will you immediately react to demands, or will you first establish your inner foundation? Will you start the day on autopilot, or will you consciously choose how you want to show up? That choice, made day after day, year after year, that's what writes your destiny. Make it wisely, make it consciously. Make it in service of your highest potential. Your future self is watching, waiting to see what you'll choose. Don't disappoint them. Don't abandon yourself. Choose to wake up, choose to be present. Choose to create your life rather than merely endure it. The sun will rise tomorrow.